Welcome to Persephone's Tavern.
Welcome back to Persephone's Tavern. That's right, we're staying indoors today.
It's me.
Because we're doing a little bit of a special episode. It's our 1-year anniversary, our first lap around the circuit as a podcast.
Guys, we did it. We can stop now and feel successful.
No.
And coincidentally, kind of wrapping up the end of like Act 1 of the campaign in a sense. So today we're just going to kick back around the fire and reminisce about our favorite moments about the campaign and probably get completely off track, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
So joining me
Horse is on
fire. Horse is on fire. You know, that's on my list. Joining me as always, we have Hayden Poindexter,
Galil Oarmender,
Austin Boyette,
Azamir Ashford,
Nick Lloyd.
Keep rolling.
completely missed it.
Yuriael Gloomraven. The Red Mask.
All right. Retake. Do it again exactly just like that.
Yeah, keep going.
Andrew Goebel.
Andrew Goebel.
Yes.
There you go, Azam.
There he is. Yeah, see, he's staying.
He was going to say Austin's character's name, but he can't remember it.
After that flip, I'm not sure I can either. I think you're all Azamir Ashford.
I believe, as previously discussed, I do play every character.
Yeah, it's canon.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, you did say just before we started recording that you're a master of impressions, so.
Yeah, do the clown.
Hey guys. Yeah. It's me, the clown.
Yeah, look at him.
You want to know about society?
Yeah, it's the best part.
You want to know how I got these scars?
The joke is, he is the clown.
But yeah, back to the topic at hand.
Whatever. Oh wait, there's a topic?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were in a podcast together.
Yeah.
We're in a podcast. That's what we're doing. Podcast.
So adventure at hand. Let's talk about the characters a bit, because on paper you guys come from very disparate backgrounds, but somehow managed to come together to make a good team.
Sometimes.
I'd say sometimes.
Yeah.
As long as it's for the children.
As long as it's
For the
children.
kids.
That's what we can all agree on.
I think it's just important that you all are good, right? Like that makes the campaign go.
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Like we all
I mean, I don't know.
aligned on the same page.
I don't know what Uriel's motives are right now. He's kind of had a little bit of a tone
Basically
shift.
killing orcs, yeah.
Little bit of
That's
a- yeah.
Uriel's whole headspace right now is kill orcs.
So I'm
That
gonna,
is very
I'm gonna say something like a little bit exclusive. If I die again, I'm not gonna make a good character. Just so y'all know.
Oh,
Guys,
really?
we have to kill Austin.
Yeah, no.
It's time for Austin's villain arc.
I get you
If
down.
you play
Oh.
an evil character, right,
Evil's-
one of two things has to happen. Either we have to steamroll you and you hate us,
Yep.
and you don't get to play much.
Yeah.
Or we find a like motive. Or something.
But like the subplot of you like DMing the DM and him DMing you back is sort of lost in the podcast because nobody's gonna see that play.
Oh, we'll
Yeah, it
we'll
will
show
kind
you-
of come across as, damn, Nick's just being a real
Yeah, exactly.
I'll make it.
Which isn't uncommon.
Which obviously, you know, we trust each other and talk about stuff outside.
We need
to bring a more heightened narrative. I'm not opposed to that. I've done that in home games. I've had gotten together with players and be like, nobody kind of trusts your character anyways. Let's lean into that and see if you can flip the script later. And it came out to some interesting outcomes.
You're going to be good enough to make it easy for everybody else.
Well,
but
yeah.
and you kill your own character.
That's what it
It's not a
comes.
beautiful thing. It makes the game better, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's because in my core, right, I'm an edgelord.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I want to
absolutely.
play an anti-paladin.
Yes.
That's just fucking
Yeah.
you guys over the whole time.
Newsflash.
But it doesn't make for good content.
No,
Yeah.
And it's not
makes
fun to
for-
be on the other side of
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
constantly
makes for a good
either.
one-player campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we just got to make a lot of compromises. A lot of the time in the campaign, it's like somebody takes over the narrative a little bit, and everybody kind of has to compromise and go that way. just for the sake of the story. Like,
I don't know. I've had a lot of fun just casting Fireball.
Fireball.
I will say it's going to be really fun when my character dies, and then everyone just kind of looks at each other and they're like, the next character's going to be evil. And then I'm just going to be so sus, but not evil. Yeah. They're going to be like, I don't know what this guy. All right, so which character are we picking on first?
Yeah,
dead
let's
one,
talk about.
let's start at the beginning.
Nice.
Krisk
Ul'Tarkas.
Krisk, yeah, what was it like? How do you feel about like
Character
Krisk's
death. 7 episodes in?
Yeah, 7 episodes.
So to be perfectly honest, that's my true character. That's my first true character.
Yeah.
death. Like,
Really?
as a character that I was playing. Now y'all know inside of the campaign, I killed off a character, but
Right.
Yeah.
Krisk, that was it's pretty rough. It's
Yeah.
very surreal, and honestly, to this day, it feels pretty surreal. Like,
I was a turn away from being able to get you up.
yeah, if you just would have tried, that would have done it. But no, we got in some shit. Like, we got in such shit that the first run through, since you were there doing your stuff,
It was kind of Krisk's fault though, to be honest.
well, he was, he was a big
I'm
part.
just really hard to hit or see.
Yeah, you were being a badass and just killing everybody we came across.
Well, that's because he was playing his character wrong at that.
And then we should have left the cave.
That's true.
We should have left the cave, and instead we're like, well, let's true RPG
We could
it
just
up and
kill
see
them.
everything.
There's been a lot of mistakes with
The
Uriel.
greatest thing about that is
Uriel went to the cave.
Sorry, go ahead.
Uriel went to the cave, saw the cave, came back and was like, guys, there's a cave in there. And you're like, did you go in?
And I was like, great, now I gotta go in. If you'd have just fucking went in.
It was a scouting. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. We were like, go scout that
Go
cave.
scout
He
it
went and
out.
checked it out. He was like, there's kobolds up in there.
Yeah.
Like, well, scout harder.
Let me go commit kobold genocide. Clear out the way for my fucking overlords.
Krisk's own hubris that killed him. It really was.
Yeah.
He was too headstrong and not enough body.
Yeah, because
strong.
I telegraphed it the whole way. You guys committed to going into the cave, snuck through the cave,
Jinga, jinga,
jingle,
jingle.
jingle. Krisk is making noise the entire way through there. And Uriel's just like, you're going to get us killed. Let's keep going. And you guys make it all the way to the other side. You see fresh air again.
Yeah.
And then you guys are like,
Let's
we got to
double
go back through.
Yeah, we got to double back. I don't want to walk around and try to find the camp. So let's
just
double
walk back through the
Yeah.
So
No,
you guys
we
gave
had a
me
couple
every
chances.
opportunity to set up an ambush, and then whenever you guys finally walked into it, it was like,
And I gotta say, like, it was an extremely needless and boring death. Like, it was like kobolds.
Kobolds.
it was what it was. I
Furry
felt like it
goblins.
exemplified how dangerous they can be in packs.
Kobolds really are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're conniving.
Just a tip for you D&D players: numbers fucking matter.
Action economy.
Yeah, you
I
wonder
would
why
rather
necromancers
fight
are so
one
fucking
dire
good?
wolf than,
Numbers
like,
matter in horror. Can you imagine to see this guy getting stabbed over and over again in the
Yeah.
pitch dark?
That
Yeah.
brought up an interesting thought, though, that, that's what Chris would have done. But
Yeah.
we were on episode 7, and I thought to myself, I might not have really started to get to know my character until maybe the 10th or 11th episode.
Yeah.
When do you guys feel like you started to know like who your character was and what he would do?
Yeah.
Very genuinely, episode 1. I knew going
really?
into episode 1
Yeah,
that
I
I
can feel
wanted to
that.
play as him.
I can
that
feel
I
that.
knew as him.
Yeah, you got him very fleshed out.
I felt that way at first with Uriel, but I feel like also Uriel is slowly descending from like
From manhood to wormhood.
no, from like a stern bounty hunter
Spoiler alert.
demeanor with like no kind of flair
He just
to him
got
to
more
like he's just he's descending into madness, I feel like especially after the Christmas episode we did where I sort of fleshed out his grandmother or whatever.
Was his grandmother?
Like that sort of gave inspiration. Okay, maybe Uriel's got a little of this madness inside him
Some
too.
Evelyn leaking through from our other campaign.
Yeah, definitely.
I gotta say, for me, it was at exactly the same time where you did, around episode 10 or 11. But that was right whenever I created Alara, and I had
Episode 8.
yeah. So it was right around.
The time you died.
Yeah, well, yeah. When I created her, it was kind of like Azamir or Andrew's character. I just kind of got out of the gate, and I was like, "Oh, I know what she's all about." So Krisk, to be honest, he was in the works on his character progression. We put a stop to that real fast.
Yeah, we had a lot to work with Krisk, I feel like.
Yeah,
I did as a DM for sure. Your backstory had so much intrigue with it.
I know. I'm sorry I killed him. I really
Because
am.
and it was more the choice for you to portray your tribe as still being a tribe.
Yeah.
And so you create this split in your village where some of them are really like, well, if the world's going to treat us like the monsters to the north, we may as well just be the monsters to the north. And then the other half of the village is like, well, Alexandria has come to Sarusha to spread peace and guard our borders from those threats that you're embracing. Can't we meet him in the middle somewhere? And then Krisk is like this marriage of a reticent soldier who's like, I don't know if I buy all this imperialistic shit.
Right.
But also, I see where my mom's coming from and making peace with the civilized world.
Yep, he was the bridge. And I hate it because I know you're a good DM, and I know that you came up with so much shit for his story. And it was just starting to get to where we might see some of that. And Chris,
can you imagine Krisk in the cave with us when we saw the other work?
Peek behind the screen, I had planned on, like, incorporating the Eastern Border Watch as kind of Krisk's, like, rise to glory. Like he might see this opportunity to restore this broken garrison and make it an extension of where he left from the north. It could come back with this very heralded tale of how he strengthened the Border Watch and gained honor and scars through doing
and then there was the massive thing, if things ever cleared up a little bit, where I could actually just go back and be like, hey, let's fucking fight this out, because he was trying to earn enough literal battle scars and then enough experience in battle to actually earn the respect of his tribe, and that was only ever going to happen if we actually went back. And I'm sad to see that.
Interesting to see. It's just a loose thread. It'll be fun to infer, though. You know,
you earned a few more scars.
Well, and now it's pretty much, I think, decided that the other guy who was going to run, who was
your father,
like your dad, right?
The way you had it was your father was going to take over the clan.
So that's going to change a lot of things. That might completely dissolve the Border Watch up there or whatever, because he has.
It's such a weird thing too, because there was no word sent back. So to your village, it's going to be like, well, he just decided he wasn't going to come back for the Crucible.
Maybe there's
forfeits.
Maybe there's a small horde of them that are like, oh, we got to hold out faith that he's going to come back, and never does. They probably get killed off.
So. Well, you never know. You know, that might make the division of the village worse, because now it makes it's egg on your mother's face in a way.
Maybe Yuriael goes and does the Crucible.
No.
Oh,
it's going to go in there and be an honorary word.
It's a
you
very
mentioned, Trevor being a great DM, and I just wanted to. We take a lot of time to talk about our characters and stuff, but this entire world already, and you do an incredibly good job at fleshing out your worlds. And me and Trevor have been playing D&D together now for 10 years, and a lot of us guys in this room for 7+ years now.
At least 7,
And they've always been in a world that I thought was really immersive. So where do you get some of your inspiration from when you're building your worlds out?
Oh man, I mean the staples, right? Like Tolkien and stuff like that. I love the Lord of the Rings. I love Star Wars, and I like taking a story that's in a certain genre and trying to reimagine it in like a different genre. Like, you see a story beat that you really like from an action movie, and you think, if I strip some of this stuff back and put some different themes on it, then it could really work out well in our current setting or whatever we're doing. And I don't know, I constantly like video games. I mean, you guys have to see the Final Fantasy inspiration in this.
Well, there's a lot
of my
of political stuff.
Yeah, and I was going to say one of my favorite Final Fantasy entries is Final Fantasy IX.
Yes.
Which is like this world that's so full of magic, but also these very well thought out kingdoms that are, some of them work together, some of them are opposed to each other, alliances change. And you see that across like more other games in the series and things like Legend of Zelda, where it's just like sky's the limit on what can exist.
But along with that, I mean, like over the past 10 years, I'm sure you've developed your own almost mythos or ethos that you're pulling from. Like, how much of this is coming from like, dead ends and past campaigns that didn't get fully explored that you want to
so much of it
delve into?
It's good that you recycled it.
All of this, it's so funny that like before we started this podcast, I asked everybody, here's like 4 little moments in history that are kind of in this realm still, the world of Gaia, the continent of Ivila, across time periods, and everyone chose the second age, this age that we're in. Which just happens to be the very first iteration of this kingdom that I made back with Hayden back in the day. And playing through that campaign was a direct inspiration from an online roleplay forum I used to be on, where it was D&D, but it was stripped back. It was like before Roll20 was a thing. There really wasn't a way to get online and play D&D.
Just like
online RP.
It just seemed like a play-by-post.
So you would get on the forum. There'd be loads of other people doing the same thing, and you would just type up a thing. Here's an introduction of the world. Here's how you should spec out your character, so everyone's kind of on the same page mechanically, quote unquote. But after that, it was just people posting back and forth. You'd log in the next day, see what the next person wrote per their part of the story, and just bounce back and forth 4 or 5 paragraphs at a time. And that campaign that we ran together was one of the most fun stories I ever played through, and I wanted to relive that. So when I started playing with Hayden and some other friends from work, I was like, can I just do it again? I still remember the layout of the world. I still remember most of the story beats. Can I just turn this into a D&D campaign? And so we kind of did with new characters, and it was just like this fun rehash of an old internet thing that's been reliced into the archives of history somewhere in cyberspace.
I never knew that.
I think
It's crazy.
I think it's interesting that you brought up this is not all the D&D we play. We actually get together and do another D&D campaign that's off the record, and it's in the same town.
It exists in the same realm.
What is it, like 200 years in the future?
I don't think we ever discussed.
Well, no.
No,
And
it's
this
much
is-
further in the future, but you guys are also in a demi-plane in that campaign.
Yeah.
That's true.
So you guys are intentionally removed by the gods
Yeah.
from, and you guys are just starting to uncover
Probably
some of that.
because what happens in this game.
Yeah.
So we sort
Even
of
at
you brought up that you laid out 4 options for us on what campaign we sort of wanted to pick, and I recall us pretty unanimously jumping on to the second one. So what made you guys lean towards this sort of medieval style over steampunk or something? What were the options?
There was the future apocalyptic one, which was like the floating sky cities and like Starship Troopers style bugs.
That
on the
was my
surfers.
second.
Yeah.
That was a fun one to play in
Yeah.
as well. That's where your Death Knight came from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right? What was the other one?
I'd like to.
We did the islands again, right?
Islands
another
was
option?
obviously the other one.
Yeah, and that's the other campaign that we play. We're on our second campaign with that group, and it's even further into the future. So
Yeah.
For me, I think I love the traditional D&D. I love
Swords and
swords and
shields.
shields, dragon in a cave,
Yeah.
necromancer on a tower.
this one
Feels
did seem
right.
to resonate with that one the most.
That's why I chose it. I wanted this to kind of be like a palate cleanser from all these gimmicky D&D settings. It was nice to feel like
Yeah.
it was kind of feel like going back to bare bones,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
the
that's what I
theme.
really wanted to do. That's where I felt comfortable, where I could know I could have a lot of creative freedom because what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, it's sort of they can be fun, but when you play in campaigns where there's a bunch of rules about how magic is supposed to be used in the realm, it just ends up being restricting on character development and stuff. And it's when you play in a realm that's similar to the realm that the handbook is meant for, it's just easier to build your character and develop your character without trying to funnel it into these
It's
weird
like,
rules.
oh, well, I'm
Less
a
work on it,
Jedi,
too.
so I'll be a Psi Knight because
Exactly.
It's more
You
intuitive.
gotta recolor everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
recolor,
Free
reflavor.
skin, yeah.
Although Sky Islands is so cool. Like,
Okay, let me say, if you end up doing a Sky Islands campaign, I'm in it.
It was,
Yeah.
I mean, to put it frankly, it's a lot like the islands one we're doing now. As Scepter would have been flying ships instead of sailing ships.
I'm
That's a lot
a
of different
war.
implications there.
I'm a Warforged gunslinger.
for a swim.
Well, a big part of
The
that.
sailing ship.
You say that, but a big part of living in that world was limited resources and having to go to the desert to dig shit up. So even though you weren't swimming in an ocean, you had to go down there where it was dangerous. every once
Can we
in a
do Sky Islands next?
while. If you want to?
Mad Max down there.
We'll see.
Oh, dude,
It's like a
Mad
distant
Max.
Max.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Depending on how this campaign goes right now, you guys might end up in that desert before it's all said and done, and that'll be fun too.
That's been super fun for me just because, like we mentioned, I've been in this realm before, so I've been in that desert 10 years ago in a different time. So it's really
No
cool for me
spoilers.
to go full circle. Well, it's a completely different time and place, but it's nice to have this shadow of lore in the background where I know,
The recognition.
I know the vibe of this place that we're sort of near.
Yeah, but you're holding out on the fact that there's a giant sandworm.
Yeah. What are they called from dude?
I don't fucking know the sandworms.
No, but I gotta just clarify that. Now I DM, but I don't DM like Trevor DMs. I'm good at improv and stuff like that, but the amount of lore and world building that Trevor has put into his campaigns, and I wouldn't argue with the fact that he tries to recycle a lot of that stuff and use the same different eras of the same universe, basically. It is astounding, and whatever you're thinking that it is, it's probably so much more fleshed out than that. And we get to see glimpses of that, and I like going through these different eras because I can see influences from our island campaign based off of the stuff that we're doing now. And I know this is just a drop in the bucket. It's going to get so much more
so now that we've been doing the podcast. But that islands campaign, the whole thing of making it a demi-plane, and it's like the entire geography of the kingdom is very symmetrical. Like one island with 6 islands perfectly spaced out around it. It's like intentional, and I use it like a test server. I use it like a place where I can try out ideas and throw whatever storylines I want to, because it's a group that has usually 5 to 6 active players at any one time, and has had up to 9 players at the table.
Ooh, it's been a lot. I forget.
And all of those storylines are going in my head, and I try to give them all the attention they deserve, so it gets to be a lot.
Yeah, just to give you credit, when our group size did get up that large to 9 or 10,
That's hard to handle.
I did a Call of Cthulhu campaign with you guys one day.
I still had a lot of fun with that.
It was fun, but it was hell.
Too much.
It was like there were too many people to get on the same page.
That was the first instance of the Azimir voice.
It was.
Yeah, I was the fast
at the table
reporter.
were getting frustrated at other people at the table, and that was the only time really that I felt that.
Some of us, it was the first time we'd play with each other too. It was a bit
That's one
of
of
a
the hard things
synergy.
about being a DM is you got to do more than just throw out the story. You got to manage actual players at your table.
Yeah,
and
because
that's rough.
You got to
you've
babysit.
got people that are wild cards, and that can be good. Like,
Put a
wild
long
card.
She is
Bring a
wild
lot of
card, huh?
flavor, but to be able to like bring that back into the story is exhausting. On the DM, I would have been.
Oh yeah, I think your that campaign would have been amazing with like 4 solid.
Yeah, I would like to revisit with a small series.
To that, we can talk about the actual campaign a bit. We touched on episode 7 talking about Austin's characters a bit, but quite a bit of stuff happened before y'all guys ever got out of Dragon's Breath.
Yeah.
Starting with even getting into the town of Dragon's Breath.
It's true.
Which is where the 4 of you guys all first met.
I didn't think we were gonna get in there for a while.
Little group.
That was rough.
I remember at the very beginning, I was really nervous about being recorded, and it's also, like I said, I didn't know my character yet.
Yeah.
And when I play D&D campaigns, like we say, we play long D&D campaigns that go for 3 years, 4 years sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Those first 10 to 20 campaigns are just
sessions.
Yeah.
So
Figuring
out of
yourself.
left field for me, and to be able to be like, okay, what am I going to record myself saying? And like now I've got to
It
do
was
it.
nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
It really was. I'd never done like a podcast.
Oh, that first episode fucked me up because my tire blew out. I was so fucking nervous. And I was like 2 hours late and shit. I was so scared.
I remember I did the sermon on one of the first episodes.
Dude, that was great.
And I
great.
was like, oh shit, I don't know how to preach.
That was such a sticky moment to me though, because you made your performance check, and I remember saying, oh, you look around and there's a couple of guys that have like sort of come around to the sermon, and you're like, yeah, praise be to you, bro.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yes.
And we're all just staring at you like, go ahead and say some stuff. But no, I think I want to say that was the first bit where you're like, okay, well, this is what my guy is. So I think from then on, it was a pretty easy learning process of feeling your character out. That was a good moment.
I think it's important. That's why it's so important to flesh out your backstory on these things, because I think a lot of times people come in with like, I'm an orphan or I have amnesia and I want to, flesh my character out. But those
It's so much
first
deeper
10
than that.
episodes, sometimes you need to just think, what will my character do?
Yeah.
Base it off
Yes.
the backstory.
Yeah.
And then as you do those actions, you sort of develop your relationship with your character. And like it becomes more of a reflex. But if you have nothing to base it on,
Right.
you're just completely a wild card. You don't even know what you would do in that.
Yeah.
One big thing for character building that I always try to do, but it doesn't always work out, is when you're doing a backstory, like let's say, hey, yeah, I'm an orphan. You got to keep asking yourself why, like a million times. You get about like, why are you an orphan? I'm like, well, my parents went to war. You're like, okay, why were they in the war? What was this war about? Like, and then
It's just as much figuring out your parents' backstory.
exactly,
as much as
and it'll help you figure out, because you can't just be an orphan and then just be like everybody else. Like that's going to have a huge impact on your character's development for anywhere from 5 to 500 years, depending on your race. But it's so much deeper than just putting something down on paper and then wanting to do that. But it does take a while. It's so much harder whenever it's all being recorded. It's absurdly hard. But now I feel like if we ever went to do another one, I'd be a lot more prepared for it.
Yeah,
we're not even on point yet, but I mean, I would be more prepared for it. I was so nervous about being recorded, especially with Krisk. What is that a hard time doing? It's easy to do voices when you're a DM. But it's hard to do them when it's your character. Like,
I don't
that's
know.
your only one.
Memorizing 30 different character
Oh,
voices.
yeah. You have to come up with 30 different voices
No,
versus like, oh, I got to use my one.
I've always had a need because you.
The voices aren't hard for me. It's the switching. If I switch a voice, I will forget to switch back.
Start blending them together.
Yeah. You do a good job with it.
Like Scott Slavian, as Andrew has coined.
Scott Slavian.
Because I can't fucking
get through the gate. We went through the.
You guys went around, but before that, Yuriael narked on the.
Oh my god,
dude!
I said along a chain of events. It would seem.
Yeah,
but it's the funniest part about that ended up being inconsequential.
Yeah,
because you guys found another way around.
Yeah. I like that we did it for no reason.
I just left a note basically being like, "I'll be watching you."
Yeah, you did that, which was creepy. And then you told the guards.
These guys, this guy's got gum. He had gum.
Yeah. That's when Yuriael was still full on, bounty hunter narc mode.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of took me by surprise because when I set up that scenario, I thought they're probably gonna, go around. I set up a side path that's really easy to circumnavigate the gate at, in the grand scheme of things. But with the caravan, I thought that you guys would sympathize with them when I set up the scenario.
No, we're like,
try to help figure them out. Because that's why I made Amelia and Edgar so nice, and one of them's just a quiet guy, and Fievel's a blowhard, but he looks harmless. So I was trying to ingratiate them to you a little bit, but then Uriel's like, I smell something.
So between Yuriael and the fact that you were like, hey, magic is like monitored heavily in this world, and then introducing us to a caravan that obviously has magic stuff in it, I think you kind of set us up for that.
Yeah, that was more me trying to paint the political intrigue of a mageocracy.
Oh, I was definitely intrigued.
But then rat these guys out.
But then it kind of backfired when you guys were like, oh, these NPCs need to go to jail.
Magic users to jail with you.
Trevor, what would you have done if we just had a 4-hour role play of staying in traffic?
God, nothing.
Anything. I'd have done
nothing.
anything.
I would have let that be the episode, and then there probably would have started the next episode with Customs finally letting you guys know.
Look at episode 16 where they're slamming our IDs.
Odds are, what would have happened is, because you remember when you guys got out of the spider cave in the next episode, like the first thing I narrated was those two red-eyed inquisitors coming down from the capital who looked like they were coming from Dragon's Breath down to the gate. So they were already in town and were getting called to the gate to deal with the customs issue. So probably what would have happened is you guys would have seen that whole ordeal with the inquisitors coming down there like stormtroopers and cleaning up the scene, and then commerce would have resumed as usual.
Here's a question though: like they came down and did what they did, and then the caravan obviously made it through.
Well,
Sans
they were
one
missing
member.
people, though.
They were missing their dwarven friend.
Their dwarf
He took the
crossbow
fall
guy
for the little boy.
Yeah.
He did it for the kids. I respect that.
He did it for the kids.
I
If
respect
there's one
that.
thing that resonates this campaign, it's that we do everything for the children.
For the children.
So after that blockade, we did make it through the spider cave, and that was our first real interaction with combat.
Oh, that spider cave.
Yep, the wolf spiders and the babies.
So I remember, I feel like I was over narrating my combat.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was just like
No, I didn't
super
think so.
detailed.
I liked it.
So
But it was uncanny for him.
Yeah.
For
My question is, at this point, like, do you feel like when we're recording the podcast, you try to explain your combat more than when we play outside, or do you try to play it just regular?
I wish I did it more. I think I just do it regular, but I really do wish I did it more, because that's kind of the thing about D&D is, and if you watch a lot of older stuff, that is supposed to be the fun, instead of just being like, all right, I want to try to hit him and then roll to hit. I mean, and it's not. When I first started D&D, I was like, I want to go for his eyes. Like, I want to stab at his eyes and see if that gives him some sort of disadvantage.
How do you make that? How do you blend that with the mechanics? So
The DM usually has to. And that's,
Yeah, I kind of take it off people's plate, but y'all have a good mix. Sometimes y'all do more than others. Some players do more
Andrew
than
does
others.
as well.
Yeah, I will say,
If it feels empty in the moment, I'll say, okay, so here's what happens. But if you guys narrate it, I don't have to fill in that gap, and it's really seamless when it's edited down. So
yeah. Now, I always noticed as Krisk, I had a really hard time in combat. Like, I don't.
The rolls were really bad for you.
I think it was a combination of that, and it's my first paladin, so
some of your stuff wasn't optimal, but not like a combat sense.
Right. No, everything felt wrong.
Your magic was weak, but there are paladin builds that work just fine being all in on the melee.
Yeah,
so,
and that's just what I thought. I was like, I'm a paladin. I'm an all-in melee guy with spellcasting, and I think I kind of hit it in the midline or something, but I always had a really hard time.
I feel like it's just bad rolls.
Should not have come into this.
The spider cave, it played into the narrative as kind of a slapstick thing, because both times it was a cave, both times it was Krisk and Yuriael. Yeah. But it really was like each time you tried to do something that was like in the heat of the moment when it really mattered, it was like, dang, your dice is just not letting you do anything.
You almost died in that first cave.
Yeah, you went down.
Don't go into caves with Yuriael.
Don't.
What would you have done if? Would you still play Alara if you died in that cave? In the spider cave?
No, not at all. She was a complete.
So much time had passed.
No, yeah, exactly. And I based her around a little bit of the story. So, no, I don't know what character I would have done, but it would not have been. I'd have probably just begged Trevor to like rewind it and be like, no. I do wish I had more time.
There's options, because you guys,
can go on a side quest.
Well, you could have brought it back to town, and there was the abbot. He might have known Revivify or something.
Yeah. I mean,
old Abbot Christopher. Oh, you've got yourself a spider wound.
Can we also talk about how you renounced your god?
Yeah.
What was that all about?
That was a big part of my combat and stuff. Like, just nothing ever worked out. And I was like, I'm going to integrate this into his RP and be like, you're not giving me any fucking help or anything.
That was so
And I love that was the last thing I did before I died.
You probably went to hell.
Yeah. Like, he's like, he did it right his whole life.
He went to the Mad Max desert.
Died, yeah.
It came off kind of like morbid humor in a way, though.
Yeah, I think so.
Because it was like, I think because it was the way everyone reacted to it. Did he just curse his god?
Yeah. And then I shit myself, I think. Yeah.
No, that was the spider thing.
No, that was
not
the
the kobolds.
That was a
spider made you shit yourself.
Krisk's armor is still in that cave. Kobold's probably wearing it.
No, we got maybe his armor, but we didn't grab his sword.
No, swords.
Yeah, because I was too heavy.
Yeah, it was too heavy.
You were too weak, I should say.
Yes.
Yeah, with your 6 strength?
9.
A 9.
And then we made it to Dragon's Rest after that.
Dragon's Breath.
Or Dragon's Breath, rather.
We took in a night of rest at the chapel on the top of the bluffs.
That's when I started to figure out a little bit about Andrew's character.
Yeah,
because up until that point, I had no nighttime, reminiscing with him, and there's a lot that goes on with him behind the scenes.
Very interesting.
Behind the scenes, yeah. That night at the chapel was the first book entry.
Yeah,
gotta say, I've never. Asmir so far has been my very favorite character.
I like
very
him a
top,
lot.
top 3 at least.
The reflavoring the oatmeal.
Oh my god! I laughed in the face. That poor guy.
He's so generous, dude. Just like,
I think that kind of.
I've got fucking cinnamon for days.
I think that kind of shows like what Asmir's belief is. Like, he's very big into magic. He thinks magic is like the way of the
Can
future.
improve the world.
It's technology. It very much is technology.
But it almost comes across as like you're better in the sense that you're like ahead of
accidental.
Almost pretentious.
Almost pretentious. Like you're ahead of the curve. You know your way is better than what everybody else is doing.
Oh yeah.
You're not trying to teach them. You're just this is cinnamon now. Yeah, like you're crazy.
Well, you can't
cinnamon, old man.
You don't have cinnamon fingers in the morning.
You mean you don't have cinnamon in your coffee every morning?
Poor old man, you gotta use actual cinnamon.
That's the thing. Like, Asmir strikes me as like the very good boy, but he's oblivious to how other people live.
I think what it is he spent too much time studying at the academy and not enough time playing with the other kids.
Well, I wanted to write Asmir. Yeah, very much so. I wanted Asmir to be like the lonely poor freak who got left in the back of the class.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of play it out like the closest friends he has is you guys.
But at the same time, like his origin story had him paired up with like a lumberjack guy.
Oh yeah,
because his parents own a lumberjack.
Yeah, so there was that bit of your character backstory that made you like,
up
okay,
until
he
that
could be an
point, he was your
adventurer,
guy, yeah.
But like he's
had
a little hardened.
Because he had a summer job working at his dad.
He's not going to get tired by the wall.
No,
right? He's not that sort of wizard. Like,
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we just
my dad was very. I wrote my dad to be very anti-magic, and my grandfather to be very super magic.
Pro-magic, yeah.
And so growing up, it was a lot of. My tutor was my grand.
Is your father
like a Rick and Morty
anti-magic
sort of thing.
because your grandfather is a super evil necromancer?
No, I think my
He's
dad
not
was
a
just,
necromancer. He's
my
a
dad
transmuter.
was
Same
anti-magic.
thing.
Computer of life.
Yeah.
I think
You
he
guys
thinks
have fought
magic
nothing
is
undead yet.
weird.
I can turn life.
Nick turned into something I wouldn't call life.
Yeah. That slug thing.
purest form of life.
Oh man.
The worm.
So you sent him back a few.
I thought I was doomed.
Yeah, I thought that was gonna be a big arc. I was like, how long is it gonna be a slug?
I
Dude?
love how it completely.
I was really
decimated
going.
everything.
I was committed to leaving it to whether or not you guys got its tools out of that back room.
Or we just
Thank
kill Yuri out of
God.
sympathy.
Had Azamir not charmed Dart in the corner. And
That was-
got
I
in
had to
that
keep
room.
pushing you to do that.
you
You're like,
did.
"There's nothing in there."
I was trying to
I'm
hint
like,
it
"No,
too.
That's it.
There was a world where you get back to town and you're just worm.
Just worm.
So after Dragon's Breath, actually in Dragon's Breath, we found your cousin.
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
That was very confusing for me because I was still trying to get aligned with the story. I feel like I missed a lot of really important background plot with your character, or between you and your cousin.
Yeah, that was a lot of character development in Dragon's Breath for my character, especially just because I was on my way to Bahamut's Spine to reconvene with, past family that I knew had passed away, and I didn't really expect to run into anyone on the way. So to meet someone younger in my family tree and to, see the perspective of her and of that area over time, the time that I had been gone, really helped me flesh out my reasons for going back to Bahamut's Spine. And that's when we found out that she was also dealing with some sort of curse.
Yeah, she's a perpetual klutz.
Yeah, she's,
Pretty much, yeah.
and I myself had dealt with some stuff in my past, so it set off some red flags of maybe we should look into that. And that really is what sort of pushed us into one of the first major interactions we had with evil in this campaign with the mining shaft.
It's always in a fucking cave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're dealing with mountains and dwarves and ancient curses, and I set up the story to be very forward, Galil forward,
Yeah.
because we were coming back to his hometown.
Yeah, he was the main character
Yeah.
at the
And
first.
his backstory had such a huge hook onto what a big evil force, a group of adventurers would try to stop. It's a regional thing that's affecting this one town. It's a perfect thing for a group of low-level characters to come in and try to solve. You guys are getting up there in level now, but back then it was I wanted to put Galil especially into this feeling of familiar ground that you had lost.
Yeah.
It was familiar but still distant, and it was to kind of put him off foot, because in his mind he had this very strong idea of what he was going to find when he got there, and so much time had passed that there was no way that you could have possibly predicted how the timelines were going to branch and
Right.
what was going to grow in place of what it was.
I think why that resonated so hard with me, it really locked me into my character, just because I think a lot of us probably moved away from our hometown, when we were young. And when I go back to my hometown, it does feel like that. It's this haunting feeling of
Yeah.
how this place changed without me.
Doesn't it feel smaller in a way? It shrank in a way?
It shrank, and it just changed without you, right? It changed in a way completely different from you, and is no longer. It's where you're from, but it's no longer you at all.
And it didn't grow at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I very much connected with that. And several times in this campaign, I found myself connecting to my character on, things like that. Do you guys feel like any events in the campaign, resonated with your life and your characters?
Shit, dude, I gotta say, whenever we were down when I met the Lake Guardian.
Yeah, when you met God that one time, Austin. Yeah.
No, he's not the guy. But as far as Alara goes, yeah, that was it really helped me get back on my true path and realize what I was there for. Because when I first started playing, I was like, oh, these guys are fucking jerk offs. I was basically a level 14 to 16 character back in the Feywilds, but something about this atmosphere, this world, diminished me severely, and I could hardly even walk whenever I first got here, let alone like fly around and do anything that I wanted to do by myself. So that's why she was pretty standoffish in the beginning, is because she was dealing with that personal adversity. But when I met Faroon, that it got me right back on track. I was like, oh yeah, the Yuri, that's the only thing that I'm here for. And even though I'm getting wrapped up in this low level stuff because I am low level now. Yeah.
It's so like condescending.
Exactly. It's how she thinks. Yeah, but like, I mean, she doesn't, it's kind of like you. She doesn't mean to be that way, but...
No. I feel like Andrew's character is unintentionally condescending. Your character is intentionally condescending.
It might be. It's up to a different place, yeah. But
I feel like
Faroon, that part was fucking heavy, bro.
Yeah, like kind of take it back because that was something that happened more recently.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, let's just talk a little bit about Ilara being this, like, I compared her to Captain Marvel when I first heard about her because it's what she sounded like to me. And I really liked the hook of it, of this druid that had like traveled through the astral sea to reach this point in space. And
this planet,
I don't know, I don't want to give too much away because we're just peeling back the first layer of what's going on with Ilara's story, why she's no longer this, archfey level apprentice to an archfey, but is now something that's more akin to a regular adventurer.
Yeah, she saw something that caused her to leave her home.
Had your hand in the cookie jar, did you?
And she was like, we got to do something about this. And so I got on the first ship to fucking
the first
Ivila.
comet.
Yeah.
I think Ilara was a really nice splash of color in what was starting to be a really cold and hard beginning to a campaign with, we're dealing with steel, snow, stone.
Yeah.
Like we're running
Cursed creatures.
And everybody's playing Batman.
Yeah.
Batman.
Ilara comes in as a druid from the Feywild, which is just such a foil to our entire party and the setting that we're in. We're in a harsh winter in a valley, and then out of a falling star comes a druid woman, and
that's immediately illustrated too, because after meeting Ilara, you guys make it up to the village, and just one day sleeping in this environment, she has like an Eladrin shift and transforms into a winter Eladrin, and now is reflecting that dreary nature of this world.
Yeah, she's very so it's kind of like a sponge with all that stuff. She's very draws from her environment and her mood.
It makes the character more sympathetic because clearly on some level, maybe even just physically, Ilara's an empath.
Yeah.
So your character's attitude is intentional. You mean to be a bitch.
Not it. We always dig it. It's the environment. It's the environment.
Let me say, I do really like Ilara. Azmir, I don't know. I feel like Azmir has a lot of questions, but I do like Ilara a lot.
No, I do like Ilara. But how do you feel about Ilara? Because I know throughout the years, I've played some characters that were female, and it's always a little bit strange. I can only imagine that strangeness is amplified since we're recording it.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, I've never been good at effeminate voices or anything like that. And I try to do it, but at the same time, like I don't try hard enough to where if it went wrong, I feel bad. But
I don't think it's necessary.
No, it is. But it's hard to even.
I mean, I do it pretty well with Regina.
Yeah, it's hard to even think like that. And I honestly think it's a lot of good that she came from the Feywild, because in a lot of ways she's an unknown quantity. And that will probably lead people to question what I do through Ilara is normal or not normal. So.
I think your character personality compensates well enough.
Think so?
Like she's brash as the rest of you guys quote bitchy.
That's a great word for it. She is brash. She's like, she cuts through all the bullshit and she's like, okay, I don't have time for these niceties or.
So she has she does have like an inherent masculinity to her.
Yeah.
It's played more as like a superiority thing.
It's kind of like meeting people from a different like continent or country. Like they grew up completely different than you. And also, I forget how old she is. I think she's 400 something years old. So it is very ingrained in her too.
But she's running into some really basic problems now.
Yeah.
Where it's like in the beginning.
Why am I dealing with this?
It's like losing your account and you have to start a new account.
She's
Why
like,
am I doing
but
this?
like the money thing, like right at the beginning, obviously
no.
you're gonna
Oh,
like
yeah,
not
yeah.
want money. It's just like a golden coin. But then later problems start to present themselves where you
Oh,
need
that-
money. And
Yeah.
you're having to learn like the value of these things firsthand.
Yeah,
Sort of.
I came from a place where it was a lot of
You had leaves.
well, it was it was tribal stuff, and not quite like Krisk dealt with, but it was like, hey, I'm very powerful. I can cure anybody that comes across sick or anything like that.
Favors and such.
Yeah, exactly. You don't exchange physical things. I mean, especially in the Feywild, everything else kind of jewels and shit like that.
Yeah, you trade names.
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, you trade favors and you earn the respect of your peers and everything. But this is so backwards for her, and I like how it's affecting her. It's affecting her quite a bit, especially since she didn't have jack shit.
So I will say I do have a kind of a question. You guys kind of all I don't know much about Laura, but when with Krisk, you guys all had like a lot of backstory played out as if your character had already been on adventures of their own. I feel like when I was writing Asmir, I just kind of wanted to write it as this was his first adventure.
Yeah.
So can I tell me about that? Like I know you said you left home to go do your own thing. I don't want to pry into anything that might come into the story, but like
let's pry.
yeah, let's pry.
Let's get in there.
No, I think it's an interesting question because there are two options when you're going into your backstory. Is do you want to be a hardened adventurer or a new adventurer? And if you're a hardened adventurer, you've got to think about like Alara, like why are you with a group of level ones? And I think that's much harder to write out. I think for me, I wrote into my backstory that I had done a lot of things, but most of the things I had done were not related to combat. I had spent a lot of time. I did spend some time blacksmithing in my youth and fighting alongside my family, but nothing more than a level 1 adventurer would do. And then the majority of my life I spent in a church, actually repairing the church and preaching sermons and doing churchly things. So when we got onto the combat field, we were on even footing, and I wasn't holding anything back, or I didn't want to have my God came to me and gave me a challenge, which is another option that we see on backstories like that. But I think for me it was important that my character, I read an article a long time called 7 Knives, and it was on Reddit, and I think about it a lot when I'm building my character. And the basic concept is when you write a character backstory, you want to put in 7 knives that the DM can use to cut you. So 7 events that happen in your backstory that the DM can then pull from later on in the story to engage you some way.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of my goal when I go into writing a backstory, is how can I write in things that the DM can engage with in some way.
Oh, I would love to go see the area where your church was built, because I'm sure you're somewhat of a folky around there.
In Alexandria.
And I would love for him to use that against.
But this old church area, that's to the east, right? In the desert area.
It's right in the center.
That's in the center.
Alexandria, yeah.
Yeah.
Which
That's a big place.
is where the campaign that Hayden played in before took place in, was the southern kingdom of Alexandria.
Yeah.
It was more of that campaign had like the pacing of like the Fellowship. They met in this western province that was an offshoot of Alexandria, and they had to journey with an NPC across the desert and far to the east, and all sorts of shenanigans happened along the way.
Hey, Nick.
So it was more like a road trip story.
The Red Mask. What is he doing here?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
So that blends in with Andrew's question too a little bit, because he sort of started out much like Galil, being fresh to combat and everything. His parents are still alive. He was raised as a regular hunter, so there's no traumatic backstory there. There's no kickback to level 1 somehow. He's just sort of branching off to a new game, and he's taking up bounty hunter as that sort of next level in hunting.
Well, why did he come here?
So as a part of that, his backstory was really heavily influenced by like the Inquisitors in the campaign, and him sort of viewing them as like assholes, keeping the normal people down, and the bounty hunters not getting as many missions. So he has to take some missions that people don't want, and one of those was Krisk, trying to hunt down this roving band of orcs, and so now that's kind of his mission, and he's the only one carrying it along since Krisk died.
Krisk would have been traveling, but also posting in hands, be like, anybody that wants to fucking lend a hand, And he just pulled one off the board, and you're like, you know, I'll meet this guy.
More or less, yeah. So
I know that him and Krisk were pretty tight.
I think it like lends itself to a really interesting group dynamic where we have, you know, older people like Galil and
Alara now.
Yeah, but we have Azamir who's young, so we have like this, you know, diversity within the group, but also we're on the same page as far as combat goes. So we've seen each other grow in combat at the same rate. So whereas I have 300 years of wisdom on Azamir, he can still save me in combat if things. So there's a level of respect that goes along with that, and like an appreciation of, you know, where that character's coming from, you know. And I think that's good. I think it's good that we all had a relatively different backstory.
The only thing that's different with Alara is that she did have, well, I wouldn't say a bunch of combat experience, but she had lived a full life, 300 plus years. And then, like Nick said, you know, she just got reverted back to level 1, level 3, I think, or whatever, back whenever she got sent to this universe. It was somewhere around 3 or 5. But she is a diminished version of herself, and she is constantly frustrated by that. Like, she's like I said earlier, like, why am I dealing with this? Like, you know, she's used to just snapping her fingers and a lot of this shit would be taken care of. But being down in the trenches is having a big effect on her. And y'all are seeing that bitter side of her. Instead of being like, I have more important things to do, which is what she was doing. Y'all are seeing a side to her that she probably hadn't seen for hundreds of years. So
humbling.
And this
quite.
This might be a little weird to ask, but like, was she always a stars druid, or is it just because you came through another dimension she became a stars?
No,
druid?
she was always a druid of the stars because and part of her backstory is the astronomer, and she had seen a cosmic event, which is what
led you to
discover.
come here.
But yeah, so she's always carried her star map around, and that was the archfey that she worked under, specialized in that as well. And she was basically an apprentice she was getting ready to take the mantle. And this was probably in her eyes, this is like the last thing that she was going to have to do before she ascended to archfey status. And she's like, it was twofold, because it was one, like, yeah, I'll run and go take care of that, and then I'll come back and everything will be good. But it was another thing like, oh shit, this is really serious. Like, we could see an entire planet wiped out, basically. So
Our sphere.
yeah, so it was noble in a sense, but she didn't think of it that way. She thought of it like another stepping stone, you know. So she had her own shit going on.
She thought she was running to the grocery store.
Yeah, basically, she's like, I'll go take care of this now.
Instead, you got Land of the Lost.
I was about to say, it was a harder landing than she expected in multiple ways.
I
So.
think
It's gonna be fun dangling that carrot, because I've intentionally made sure that you don't know why things are not going the way you think they should.
Yeah.
I think it's good when she came into the campaign, because I think, you know, at level 1, that would have been a harder backstory and thing to play without spellcasting, but coming in at level 3 or 4.
Yeah, you still have some skill and power.
You got just enough of
Yeah.
lore and stuff, and
Like, if you go all the way back to level 1, you're no longer a stars
like you don't even have
druid.
wild shade,
Yeah, exactly.
things like that.
No, it worked out really well.
Second level that druids.
Well, one more thing about her that maybe some people don't know is that the time shift between the time that she left the Feywild after seeing these events and this time was drastic. And that is another reason she is so confused as to what's going on, because she came in and was like, this is what I gotta do. And then she lands and it's like, what fucking time am I in right now? Because this is not how I expected things to go. Her entire star map shifted. Like, she didn't recognize the stars anymore. The celestial planets had changed on her.
Which that is a fun little play into like why you're weaker, because like now you got to reevaluate the entire stars.
She's got to reattune to all of this, and most of her nights she actually spends trying to reattune her star map and figure out what the hell's going on in this.
Man, all you guys are fucking nerds. I got me fucking reading my books all night. You fucking tracking the stars.
I feel like your
all
books
night.
read to you.
It's
That's
all.
what that is.
How do you know about that?
I mean,
You got them audio
I
books.
watched you one night.
Oh, you watched me one night?
Yeah.
You watched me my little.
I think Galil watched you one night. No, it was.
Yeah.
Or it was.
Galil prays and goes to bed.
You know.
Boys got a records.
Boys got a rat curse.
Boys got her at We gotta fix this.
That was so funny. He's been down there for so long. Dude's like, I'm gonna cure you. And then you walk up and you're like, bam.
You're not a rat.
Sometimes it's nice hanging around other people.
Yeah. For reasons completely non-immersive breaking, I have this spell now.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good moment, though.
Yeah, we love Everett. I love Everett.
Because that was like this big, he was like coming to terms with himself in that moment.
Yeah, we're like, oh, you don't have to bother with that. We'll fix it.
Well, yeah, it kind of was like that. He's like, oh, you've been hiding out down here because you skipped out on a job for a criminal organization.
You don't know yet, but we're the main characters, Everett.
I think that's
that's
like a common theme though that like a lot of people can connect with is like sometimes you fuck up and you're so afraid of like meeting the consequences that you dodge them for so long, and then finally you
hundreds of years
meet the consequences, and they're nowhere near as bad as waiting for the consequences was.
At least not on first sight.
Yeah.
But at least he's got us this time. It may have been different if he'd approached all that by himself.
The fucking bitch in the penthouse. She seems a little crazy.
We're getting ahead.
Yeah, we're a little ahead of ourselves because it really goes back to the through line of this is the Aether Sight and the Yuri.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like the connecting thread to most of y'all's backstories.
I don't know what you mean.
Except for Asamir's.
Yeah, he's the only one that's unaffected by this.
Completely clean slate.
As of yet known.
Yeah, I really liked the Aether Side angle just because I made my character with a blacksmithing, stone cutting sort of background, and I've done that in the past and not really ever had any use out of.
I still think that was one of the most fun characters that you had. Like, I saw the glint in your eye over the potential of that character.
Yeah.
And we stopped that campaign, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do love, I played World of Warcraft all growing up.
Gross.
I played a lot of World of Warcraft, and the dwarfs in World of Warcraft always had this sort of air of honor and like regalness to them without being arrogant or pompous. They were always helping anybody that was near them, but always had their shit together. And I wanted to make a dwarf that was more similar to those dwarfs than like the Lord of the Ring dwarfs, which are
the
a
greedy
little more brass.
Yeah.
They're burping, chugging beer, like
suspicious of others.
Yeah, and mine is more like a World of Warcraft dwarf, and where I'm fully intermingled in this society that's humans, dwarves, elves, whatever. I know that this is the world I live in, but I do have this heritage of being dwarf that I'm proud of, and I'm glad that I get to go climb through caves and hunt down ore and smelt in my mother's forge and do things like that in this campaign.
I love that you are not getting that mirrored back to you, though, being in Bahamut's Spine.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're like, okay, you're a dwarf. Like, oh, your family
There's
used
been
to
dwarves for hundreds of years.
Yeah,
here.
you're dwarf. Your family used to live here a few hundred years ago. No big deal.
Yeah.
That's like, back to my influences of Lord of the Rings, that's like the 5 armies in The Hobbit, where they go back to the city of Dale by the river, and
They're like,
there's
we don't give a shit.
who gives a shit about dwarves? We've been living in poverty since you guys.
Go kill a dragon and then we'll talk.
Although they do start giving a shit whenever the dude promises some treasure.
Yeah. He's like, oh, hang on.
And then he doesn't give them it.
But he actually,
Smart man.
yeah.
Like, on second thought, we can keep the treasure.
This
All of
is
it.
my treasure.
My treasure, especially the big rock.
Can't have the shiny ones.
So after Dragon's Breath,
After Dragon's Breath, we
The
have
mining.
decided, God dang, that was a rough trip.
Wow.
we had to make our way towards Bahamut's Spine.
This is the Horses on Fire arc.
But yeah, this before that.
Before that
we went
was
to the
Dragon's-
mining,
Dragon's
yeah,
Breath
the
still.
mines.
Yeah.
That was crazy. So that was our first encounter with the half.
That big spider thing.
Spider domination.
Yeah.
Krisk,
Lots of treasure.
still Krisk. There was a lot of
crazy treasure too. Nothing I can use.
Yeah, I think that moment really was like when I was super stoked about the campaign, because I was like, all right, this is full on like high fantasy, high magic monsters and shit's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so I was super stoked to see the half spider monster, and I thought that combat was really.
Fast.
It was fast. It was it was dangerous at several points, but it was fun. The Tasha's hideous laughter.
Oh, yeah,
off the
that was
ceiling,
For me, it was more the
when you
it was
fall
funny.
pro?
It was more the build up to it, that you guys knew there was something in there,
Yeah.
and you just didn't see it until the very end.
very unexpected enemy.
Did we save all those people that were trapped in there?
There was only one survivor,
Oh, okay.
We did so.
but you saved him. Yeah.
We did
But yeah,
save them.
I was very much, because up to this point we're dealing with mundane shit. I very much expected like a band of rogues.
Yeah.
To be like taking the equipment out or something like that. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh no.
No, it's a twist.
Yeah.
To an extent, they were though.
Yeah.
There were rogues
Yeah.
at the end. That
Yeah.
was associated with this monster.
And what happened to those rogues?
What happened to those guys?
Well,
You got a
You
fucking
see.
40mm hole in their chest.
see,
Yep.
there's this spell, and the way it's worded,
Chest
A lot different than how we were using it.
Just a
you
little
know,
bit.
you,
I
you
mean,
gotta
in that
you gotta
moment-
you gotta read.
That was like his
things.
first
Yeah,
or
you
second
gotta
shot
read
with it.
things. For sure.
And sometimes you don't.
Sometimes a first level spell becomes a
Sometimes
sixth
can't
level
be
spell, and
bothered
it's
to-
I was just I was amazed that spell was so good.
Level 1? What?
we all were.
Yeah.
We were enthralled.
So yeah.
It's designed specifically for the Rangers.
You
I
get
like
you
how-
get you get to do that once, but I think in that encounter I did it probably
like 6 times.
yeah,
Fucking blinking on.
blinking away.
Used it to catch the cart.
Yeah.
Blew a
Yeah.
guy's chest out.
Speaking of, after the combat,
Very
Still
nice.
good visual.
one
though.
Yeah,
of
the cart.
one of the only like real chase scene we've had in this campaign,
loved it.
which I
Yeah.
thought was really high,
Which was
energy.
Yuriel versus Cart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fire, dude, heading towards
Horses
town.
on fire.
Yeah, that was
Classic.
an awesome moment.
Classic
I was
scene.
like, oh,
One of
yeah.
my favorites still.
I hated that they stood that card. That
And
was
if-
why I
Yeah, we
was
could have
so-
filled that horse
Put
with
some
alcohol or
stakes in
something.
there. Like, You guys
Yeah.
were killing everything. I was like, all right, well, they're gonna murder combat. What can I do to challenge them?
Or those, wait, those are the horses that are our horses.
They are our
Those
horses.
horses are Uriel and Uriel.
Yes.
Yuri and L.
Oh, I thought they were
Yuri
both
and L.
Uriel.
They're
No,
both Yuri or they're both L because they can't decide which one they like better.
Oh yeah, no, Yuri sounds cool.
They're
Those
they're
are good
currently,
horses.
I guess, trapped in the stable at Opalton.
Yeah,
they're having a good time.
Miss Vera's taking care of them or whatever her
Taking
name
care with
is.
air quotations.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about Bahamut's spine though. You guys get in there expecting like crooks and criminals, and
It's just
you just
people.
find a poor town of peasants.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that the fucking tailor that kind of pressed into, he was very suspicious about the whole thing. I really
I
really
forgot
want to go
about
back
that.
into that.
We need to interrogate it.
I mean, I think we
It's
found
a
the
little bit late
suspect.
in that for that.
Yeah, but he probably knows something.
I think the cat's out of the bag now.
Yeah.
I think looking back, going to Bahamut's Spine and visiting my mother's grave was one of the more powerful moments I had with my character, and I think some of the goals I had with this character, either knowing so or not, was to sort of brush up against my own mortality and my own age creeping up, and it's like I'm sort of living through this mouthpiece of my character who's approaching his mother's grave, and it's like that'll happen to me one day, so I'm getting to like get a practice run at this thing. It was very real to me, and this like there was a sadness involved, but also a recognition of this is happening, this is gonna happen, and I really enjoyed that moment.
It was a great
episode.
moment.
Yeah.
That was a really good episode.
How
Trevor
was-
handled that really well.
It was
So-
like it was sobering, but also hopeful
yeah,
because it wasn't. You didn't see a grave of someone that wasn't loved. You
Right.
saw someone that just died in their time.
Yeah.
Well, and also part of her still remains. I think that was a
Forge
big,
and
Yeah,
now
yeah,
more so
you're on
now.
it.
Like that's kind of what
you've
Galil's character is
rekindled
in the
that,
process
yeah.
of doing is going through that forge.
I think going you did a great job of like hooking me in at that moment with the event happening at the forge right around the
Oh,
time
with,
of
like,
the
the
grave.
flashbacks and everything.
It
Peek
was like-
behind the screen, you guys were supposed to be fighting all three of them. When I set up that encounter, I thought in my head that you guys would all go to the forge together, and I was gonna have the curse go off on your friends and get shook out of it that way. And so like I had to kind of pivot in the moment. I was like, okay, I still want this to be this. I want it to have the same impact without him fighting 5 shades for no reason. So I was just kind of narrated through it real quick.
Laura also got to see that scene firsthand.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah,
through,
so
through
she
some
was thinking
smoke
around. Yeah. Well, but she saw the I know you're a dwarf, but the humanity of your character and that development. And
Yeah,
it
you
probably-
saw me
Humanoid.
decorating.
Yeah.
You saw me decorating my mother's grave
Yeah.
and like cleaning it up.
Yeah.
And I think did you come back there and like grow some flowers or something?
Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah, you put extra juniper
Yeah.
berries on.
How
stone.
old were you when your mother passed? Did we ever discuss that?
She passed while I was away.
Yeah. So
I
he
left-
was more lost. She was more lost to him while he was away
Right.
than now that he's back. because he's
Exactly.
rekindled.
And that's sort of like the going home. It's like people ask me several times, like, why are you going home? And it's like, I don't have an answer for that. But I think the honest answer is like, because that's where my mom was. You know, that's where home is, and I've been away for so long. It's just like this pulling to go back. I knew she had passed, just not by like word of mouth. It's just it's been long enough that I know I've fucked up bad enough that she's passed. I didn't have any sort of hope that she was alive. But it was also, like Trevor said, a really sobering moment to go up the hill and to see the gravestone. Like, okay,
Get that
it's
closure.
reality. It did pass. Time did transpire.
That's really the only
But it's
statement that you
liberating.
can make in that moment is time has passed.
Yeah.
It was liberating though, because now you have made peace with that, and you can live your life now, because you were always living in the shadow of unknown and doubt.
Well, now it's very much me clearing up, like me very much realizing that there is a problem here that I can sort of help and maybe, save my family's name, not to any outside forces. Like, I don't care what Bahamut Spine cares about, my name, but in my eyes, to see that my family's done right in the world instead of done evil, I think is important. I think that part has to do with the dwarf background and part has to do with the cleric background, but he very much wants to see his family's name as good and not as a force of evil.
I feel like one thing your character would say about that is, if stone could rot, it would definitely be Bahamut's spine.
Right.
Because, it is just nothing. It's like there's something looming right underneath the city, and literally and figuratively, but I can see how you'd want to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah. It's rough going back, because it's like you have a vision of your youth that it's like, this is rough comparison. This is almost like it's like capitalist. It's like like this place serves a function now, and it's not a home to people.
Right.
Like,
right.
It is, but only barely.
Yeah.
And it's like it's meant to almost feel like no one can control it.
Yeah.
Like no one has any say over to whether it's good or bad. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
This town could have been such like an empire. It could have been the capital of this area, and it just turned to complete shit. And I think we're starting to see why that actually happened, and we're gonna peel back the layers of what actually led to this. We got a good glimpse.
Peeling
into
back
it.
layers of that tower.
Yeah, exactly. And everything
Started out as a scream, turned into a soiree, into a ice cavern with frogs and bayhir.
Oh,
Yeah, I was saying before we started recording, we're getting past Bahamut Spine, but the moment that we entered those caverns in the Underdark is really where I felt like the campaign started to like rocket off.
Yeah,
like
open up.
when I started the campaign, like I knew what my character wanted to do that day. Like I knew the goals and what we needed to do, and that sort of like snowballed to where we're at now. I think that's what a good campaign does. Is now we're really rolling.
Well,
Sorry, go ahead.
mine was later. Mine was when we not until we got to the tower. I mean, but that's the beautiful thing about D&D is everyone does bring their own perceptions to the table, and it's so much more. Just to talk about D&D for a moment, D&D has been such a positive thing in my life, and anyone out there who accidentally stumbled upon this or anything D&D, go play D&D, like with a good group of friends or just a good group of strangers.
Yeah, just don't go online and ask a forum and you get weird.
No.
Or do.
Yeah,
You know what?
yeah.
You know what? That's right.
We all
I'm an
have-
asshole.
Some of my first role play was on one of those weird online forums, and I gotta say it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's what you make of it, and if you are at a table with people that just are not there for everyone to have fun and stuff, you're gonna have a bad time. So be sure that outside of the game, you're good friends, or you can at least get along. But D&D, it is such a positive thing, and I hate that it ever had any negative connotation in the past. It became demonized and stuff like that. But for building soft skills and conflict resolution, communication between your peers, friendships that I never would have made otherwise. But I mean, it is amazing. I could not highly recommend D&D enough.
I don't know. I wouldn't be here for Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah, Austin was my first DM.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we went to college together, and I just posted it one day. I knew what D&D, the power of D&D could do to bring people together, and I just luckily had a few people interested in it and started a group over there, and Hayden met up with Hayden whenever I got to Domino's.
Yeah, that was going to say how we started playing together is because he came to me and asked me if he could print off character sheets.
He's like,
no, I play D&D.
I expected him to be like, are you fucking crazy right now? No, you can't do that. The paper costs money. But no, yeah.
For context, that was shortly after I moved to Cabot, so I wasn't playing with him
exactly.
anymore.
So he was starved for it. Yeah.
So
I was off the end of a 3 or 4 year campaign.
were you printing off our character
Yes,
sheets?
I was.
Holy
I
shit!
was.
This goes deep.
I know. And this was so I started stuff with him and Nick, I believe.
Yeah.
While we were still doing our stuff at the library and over at the school and everything.
Yeah, we were playing my hustle meeting.
And then you got the job at Domino's, and I was like, we gotta merge these two.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, well, it was, and that's the thing.
Were you the only one from that group that ever came over?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was the only one.
Because I do remember that we were talking about
Yeah.
merging the groups at one point.
Yeah, that was a really good group of people over there.
And I still talk to them. I talk to them very frequently. They're still very cool people.
Yeah, oh yeah. And that's the thing is D&D. Even if you're people who never ever would have spoken otherwise, D&D
Such
can
a
be that
common ground, yeah.
I mean, and so much of what I am gets poured into D&D that I end up revealing things that I don't even talk about with people through ambiguous, choices and stuff and mannerisms in the campaign. It's just such an inside out experience. I recommend everybody to do it, especially if you have a feeling that you don't know who you are or whatever. Man, play some D&D.
Even if you're not the kind of person that thinks
Yes.
like, okay, I'm not a nerd
No, you
or
don't have to be
whatever.
a
Like,
nerd.
you know, like my girlfriend Sarah, for instance, she's been loving D&D recently, and like she's not your typical person you'd think would be playing Dungeons and Dragons.
It just
I think
depends
over
on who
the
you play
past
with.
10 years, the game has really come like leaps and bounds as far as like
huge.
public perception.
Yes.
Because,
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
like,
Nerds are cool now.
Yeah, nerds are cool now. When,
Yeah.
when
Yeah, because the
Trevor
nerds grew up and
Tristan
ran the
were
world now.
starting to try to get me to play Dungeons and Dragons, I was
underground.
like, "There's no way I'm gonna play Dungeons and Dragons." And at the same time,
You were a
I was
nerd.
going home and logging 100 hours of World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
a week, and I was like, "There's no way I could play Dungeons and Dragons." And then,
Yeah.
like, it's just
Hate to
so
tell you,
stupid.
but you already are.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that. If you could just show somebody what the game is. I saw somebody on a podcast who was doing it where they were like, somebody asked them about Dungeons and Dragons.
It's so simple.
And then they were like, okay, so now you're in a cave and there's an owlbear. And an owlbear is 12 feet tall and it's got, giant feathers all over it, but the mouth of a bear. And you have a sword. What do you do?
I think
And
I
they're
saw
like,
that.
Okay, I want to do this. And you're playing
playing
D&D,
D&D.
right? This is it. That's
Yeah.
how you should introduce people.
Yeah.
It's like, just
do
get
it.
them in there. Like,
You don't need dice.
I saw
You
one
don't
that
have
was
to do
even crazier. There was one like, okay, you're trying to get to work on time, and like this happens, and you wake up 5 minutes late from your own clock, and now you have the choice, like, do I hop in the shower or do I just like spit in my hand and rub it through my hair or whatever? But it was like things that they ran across.
Give it the old hawk to it.
Yeah, the concept of D&D
Go ahead
is so
and take this
simple, and you
episode.
can make it anything that you want to. And now more than ever, there's Star Wars D&D, there's Western D&D, but it's about what you make of it. And if you don't come to have a good time, you're probably not going to have a good time, and that will also affect other people. But
it's really the ability to like tap into that like
Imagination.
childhood
Yeah.
imagination
Yeah.
play that you lose at some point, because
it's still there.
as somebody who's like a heavy video gamer, a heavy
Yeah.
nerd, like eventually at some point that like imaginative play turns into like narrative construction.
Yeah,
and, like
you don't believe in
breaking-
Santa anymore.
Yeah, well, it's not just that. It's like everything you're doing has a pre-thought out story that's like
Oh, yeah.
6 layers deep with like meta and like subtext
Not
and like
D&D.
yeah, it's like when you put a sword in your hand and like there's an ogre in front of you. Like, what do? You get to strip all that back and
Yeah.
just be a kid on an airplane.
Yeah.
flying through.
One thing I always said was like it's like Fallout, except when in Fallout when you go to talk to somebody, there's like 4 or 5 different text
Yeah.
options. What if you could say or do anything?
Yeah.
Like, and then that's exactly what D&D is. Like, obviously you don't want to kill everybody you walk across, but
But you can't.
but you could.
You could.
But you could. Yeah, it's choices.
Every new
with
player
consequences.
goes through that power fantasy of I stab everything, and then the
Now
DM's
there's no
got to
one
rein it in.
left. Now I can't buy things.
Yeah.
Well, they're sobered by that.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I did kill everybody. Now this isn't fun.
Or
All right,
they're
let's
not
do it
sober.
for real this
some
time.
people lose. Some people will
Yeah,
hop
they'll-
off the track at that point when.
when it stops being just a button masher.
Make sure it's fun
Yeah.
for everybody.
Ever-
Well, I gotta
D&D is
say,
collective
in my
storytelling.
opinion, the best illustration of it being like a video game is Baldur's Gate, but that is as high and mighty as it will ever be whenever you translate it
If
to a video.
I can use Baldur's Gate as a segue, that is really what inspired the Cistern for me.
Really?
Was not just the whole concept of it being like an underground world like the Underdark was in that game, but it's the pacing of it. Because when you go down in there, there's like 6 or 7 different ways you could have gotten in there.
Yeah.
And it's like a whole new world that you
All
get to
connected.
explore. And you're like, oh my God, I'm playing a completely new game. But 20, 30 minutes into it, you realize, oh, this is all very deeply connected to what's going on up top.
Yeah.
And
Just a few hundred feet away
I
from it.
felt that like that was such a satisfying like narrative process to have it all web underground and then kind of bubble back up to the surface. And I kind of just used that as a jumping off point for the Sister, and that I think paid off pretty well.
I think it does show like if you were to play Baldur's Gate and play D&D, to piggyback off what Nick said about collective storytelling, you can just tell like, okay, Baldur's Gate is the game D&D. It is the mechanics of D&D almost to the core, but it does not have the collective storytelling.
You feel that.
to it. Yeah.
You feel it as you're playing. You're like, this is a really cool story,
This
but
is my
once I've
story,
experienced it, it's never going to change again.
Yeah.
You're always going to have those same 6 companions that are going to have their same 6 storylines, and it doesn't matter how much you want to self-roleplay through that, you're always going to kind of do the same thing.
What's interesting to me is like, how are we going to incorporate collective story building into that and not make it a RPG?
This is already available, y'all. Like, it has been available since the 70s. Like,
Yeah.
y'all need to go try it out.
Okay.
Topical humor.
So it looks like we're running a little low on time. So if you guys got any rapid fire things you want to talk about, favorite moments.
So I will say favorite moment, definitely episode 7. I do gotta say, with me and Yuriael talking about shit, and with you and Krisk in the cave going back and forth, it was very tension breaking and very
like that.
not tension breaking. What do they call it? It's
Comedic
like
relief.
here's the tension, here's the relief, here's the tension again, here's the relief.
No, it was well structured.
And the conversations that we had versus the conversations you guys had.
I was going to say, I can't believe we've made it this long without somebody bringing up the hot dog one.
That was crazy.
The glizzy goodbye.
What a great
But
title.
also,
I wish I could write music. That would be the name of a song.
The glizzy goodbye. Anyways,
Goodbye.
I just wanted to know, because I don't think we covered it, but like, what are you guys' in I guess in a short burst, some inspirations for your characters?
Well, right now Uriel's main inspiration is to definitely kill all these orcs that he was supposed to track down with Krisk, and sort of bring any kind of retribution towards Krisk and his tribe. I don't know if Yuriel knows or would care to inform his tribe or not. I haven't really thought about that.
Well, how about before Chris came along?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your idea for Yuriel before that?
You know, it's changed drastically.
Yeah.
Very much.
since
Because didn't y'all
then.
kind of get together and
We
kind
did,
of
yeah.
write your backstory together?
But I feel like he had a really rough idea of what Uriel was before then.
Yeah.
I feel like without Krisk's inspiration, it'd still be a good character, but it's better now.
Yeah, no, before then, Uriel was really just going to be like the straight-laced bounty hunter type with a little bit of a grudge towards the Inquisitors, but maybe just because he wanted to, take that role and wasn't being given a shot. Now it's more so like...
Nick Rage Cage and Bangkok
Yeah.
Dangerous.
Yeah, like he's got this wild side to him.
It's almost like he got some orc in you.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of that orc in him, like, where he
Got that primal fury.
wants to...
in me.
wants to put his pride and his ego before his own life in some instances,
As we saw in the Bullywug
Yeah.
camp.
Yeah.
That was
Dropping your sword.
that was probably my favorite moment.
That's
so
what I
far.
was gonna say.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies.
We're talking
It's
about
Bully.
what our favorite moments are. Mine was just the whole Bullywug camp.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
beautiful. It was a beautiful
Like,
encounter.
I love the
Really, really
Bahir in the cage and Azamir talking to the Bahir. And
That was.
The dam.
I was
Yeah, very
actually
fun.
like shaking.
there were so many
Talking
like
to the bay here.
climaxes that are like, okay, this is the worst thing that can happen.
No,
and then
this
right
is
after
getting
that,
off,
it was
yeah.
just like, and then like we're trying to escape, and we just look up on the ridge, and our rat is setting off an explosive on the dam where you guys are up. It's like, holy shit!
Well, and then I was in there with the animals, and Laura had a really
Oh,
tough internal battle about the animals. I did everything I could to try to save the animals, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to save as many as I can, and I'll share the same fate with them. And
she proved that she would rather drown than leave them behind.
She does not like caged beings, of any type.
There's something in D&D that
they need to be hunted wild.
We call like the rule of cool. Where it's if your player's trying to do something cool that's not trying to fuck up the story, you just kind of let them do it. And like there was a part in the Bullywug camp where I got to like heal the Bahir as it was working through the through the village, and I like climbed up on its back and was riding it and shielding it. And it was like such like a power fantasy thing for me. It was like, I really enjoyed that.
I knew how much you liked Monster Hunter, so I was like, I want to get him like right next to this big fucking monster.
Yeah, speaking of inspiration, obviously video games are a huge inspiration for me and my characters. World of Warcraft heavily, but Monster Hunter. In my other campaign, I have a character that's literally just a Monster Hunter.
On your Palamute.
Yeah, and so I love video games, and it's inevitable that I'm going to bring some of that to the table. But like we talked about when we were talking about why we picked this sort of realm and this age to play in, I wanted to take some of just like the classic with my character, as well as like I'm going to anything that's fantastic about this character is going to come from things that happen in the campaign. He's going to be the canvas, right? So he's a cleric, a dwarf. These are things that I can relate to without having to look something up or think too hard about it. I know these things almost instinctively, and then we can let the character develop from there. Was my idea.
It's funny because Krisk, as much as I hate to admit it and give more life to something that's obviously been dead for many years.
Oh, you don't know yet?
Skyrim.
Oh,
it's not dead.
No,
but I mean, it should be dead. Like it should be dead, and we should be 2 games out of there.
That's another. That's another
other podcast.
In the live service era, it's just a different world. ESO's still good.
No, ESO says Skyrim, like
Elder Scrolls 5.
Elder Scrolls, So
that's a can of worms. We can have another podcast about gaming for.
But that's where I got the inspiration from Chris. The initial spark is like running into an orc encampment, and they're just their whole thing, and they're smithing in there, and they got their own god and everything. They just live such a consolidated lifestyle right there. Whenever everything right outside of their borders is normal in a sense. So, and that's where I get the initial spark from him, and of course the Border Watch thing. I was like, oh yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah, this is like
the Border Watch.
Such the same vibe.
I wanted him to be the bridge between that and then the outside world, and that's exactly how that played out.
In Skyrim especially, you've got not just the orcs are out there scattered around this kingdom, but the kingdom is also in a civil war too.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's like all these other things at play.
Yeah, but as far as Laura, I have no idea where I drew her inspiration from, and I don't know if you know, Trevor, but we talked about it a little bit.
No, I mean,
don't know how that came about.
Spark from a muse.
You gave me the idea of your character, and that heavily inspired me. I was like, oh man, this character has so much aesthetic flair.
I know you did that. You kept pouring stuff out at me, and I was like, yeah.
I gave you this whole thing.
Yeah.
It really inspired me the way you described the character. I didn't even really know much about the personality other than that they were ambitious and skilled with magic.
I think literally I went through the DM and I was looking at backgrounds, and I was like astronomer, and I was like, huh. And then I saw the one that was like, you have portended.
Yeah, it's the sage background.
Or sage.
The hermit.
No, it's the sage.
It's the sage.
But,
you get a discovery.
But the astronomer is within the sage. Like, it's like, what kind of sage are you? And then that, and then I want to say like the same day was researching classes and stuff, and I'd never seen the Druid of the Stars before, so I was like, this goes hand in hand. And then from there, I handed it to you, and you're like, oh, this would be awesome. And I'm like, that's what I want to do.
Well, because the reason why is because Druid has this spell called Plane Shift.
Yeah.
They get it at 13th level, and you pretty much break the game once you have that. You can go to anywhere you want to go. And I was like, a Druid of the Stars would have maybe a different take on this. And so I started thinking about the Astrolarium, and like, what if it's this circle of druids is ingrained, because you don't just have a druid. that's just alone. Some of them are hermits, sure, but most of them swing around in circles where other like-minded druids come together and build their strength and following. And so this whole city around the Astralarium Tower is like this hub of astronomy. You know, it's a place where many intellectuals come to look at the stars and learn about things. And you know, that I thought that would be like a really cool place to hone your craft and be a literal jumping off point to launch you into this campaign world while still being connected. And there's a reason why you started in the Feywild and ended up in the material plane.
Yeah.
And it was your character design that they would be from the Feywild in the first place. And so I was like, okay, so we're incorporating plane shifting into in a campaign with lower level characters. Nobody's gonna have any access to plane shift or anything like that. Yeah. Nobody's gonna have met anybody that has access to that sort of magic. So what can I do that's just so outside the realm of possibility and being expectation that it's a good jumping off point for what you wanted, which was a powerful character that's been somehow robbed of their strength.
I do remember coming up with that.
I feel like Alara and Nathaniel have a lot in common.
And
something cataclysmic happened in those stars. When you wide it out, you lost something, which
Andrew?
I like.
Where was your character inspiration derived?
Okay, yeah, so, sorry, I got a little distracted by
My dice.
I'm sorry.
It happens every time.
So all the adults are talking.
Andrew's making a dice
in the
tower.
corner,
I asked the question.
Yeah.
That's funny.
He's like, I get full credit. No, I
What are you talking about?
Oh, those two got it.
Anyways, when I was kind of coming up with Azimir, I really just wanted a boy. I'm not like a child, but I wanted like he was fresh, he's green and things.
It's a great
and
premise.
with the magic in the fantasy world is my favorite thing because that's something I wish I could fucking have.
You play
I
casters
love
mostly.
casters.
Yeah.
Play a
Imagine if you woke up one day and pointed at your alarm clock and it was like snooze.
Yeah.
How fucking
That never happened again.
And a lot of the inspiration.
that was a dream.
And a lot of the inspiration, me and Trevor kind of bounced a little bit around. Me personally, I was saying like, oh yeah, well I mean like Gravity Falls. I'm a big fan of Gravity Falls, so I was like, what if I just played like this Dipper Pines kind of character with this magic book and shit like that? And then Trevor was coming off as like, oh well, yeah, I like it, like Tom Riddle from Harry Potter. I'm like, whoa, that'd be kind of cool. And like, I like this idea of like having a mystery, like a new character who doesn't know what's going on, who there's a mystery surrounding himself that he doesn't know about.
Right.
And so like,
and we get to watch you uncover it and adapt to it.
However much you let us see.
Yeah.
Much
Which is
like
not much so
how
far.
I've kind of
I
He
know.
took a card out of my.
You guys have seen a point with his grandfather.
That's the thing. I wanted
And
to.
it's you guys are so suspicious of his grandpa.
Yeah. I wanted to go around the table and just have a vote real
Let's
quick.
have a vote.
Evil or not evil? So,
Can I get a poll in the chat?
Galil.
Mods, can I get a poll in the chat?
Galil says evil. Alara says.
This is my take. I say not evil, but
All right, that's it.
furious.
Evil.
All right.
Definitely.
Azimir.
not evil. My vote should count as 2. He's my family.
The room is split.
Yeah.
We'll
I
find out.
vote neutral.
I think if he's doing bad shit, he's doing it on accident. And that's what I think.
And I almost went to Azmir voice.
Do it.
My grandpappy ain't doing nothing.
Grandfather. But no, is I just like this big mystery, and I feel like part of it, I want it to almost feel like he doesn't know he can telepathically communicate.
I've noticed you pushing it hard, but I can never tell if the rest of the group is clued in on that because they seem very confused when you're like, oh, I don't know why you're doing that, and they're just like, well, why did you say anything then? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, no, it's like he doesn't know he can do that. It's just like, sometimes there's like a little spurt of like, oh, there's something going on. I'm thinking about this person, and then they hear what I'm thinking about them about. That's kind of what like I'm focusing enough,
Funny. It's almost like a social disorder. But
a lot of that is kind of inspired from how I wanted to play Azimir and what I wanted his character to be kind of like, this weird this mystery, and I'm big into like astral horror and shit like that, Cthulhu mythoses and things.
You really opened the door for me to take what was originally basically a vanilla fantasy setting and just ramp up the body horror to 11.
Oh yeah, no, and my
Leave that in.
That's what they all say.
One of the few things that still kind of freak me out, because I grew up in a very horror movie household, body horror is still very frightening to me.
Yeah.
When we had the incident with the Spider-Man, and coming in with Asmir just saying like, oh, in the spider caves, like, oh, I guess, Asmir's would be scared of spiders, and then a few sessions later we fight a Spider-Man
abomination,
and I'm feeling like I'm freaking the fuck out. Peace, guys. Misty, step out of the cave.
I do like the lighthearted. Oh, I'm just adjacent to this spooky shit constantly, but I'm just vibing.
It's just me.
I think it's interesting. We've got a diverse things that we pull from. I know we haven't brought it up, but animes in there. We've got literally Cartoon Network is a huge inspiration for a lot of people at this table.
Yeah.
Lovecraft, Tolkien, it's all the stuff that all nerds like. I think that's what we talk. It's so weird, this common ground that is D&D, that's like a unifier, because you realize nerds really do like a lot of the same shit.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you guys think your character could be the next BBEG, the next campaign?
Mine will not.
Casimir could.
No, he couldn't.
Maybe. I don't know. Uriel is losing his mind.
I feel like
That's a great question. At this
I feel
point,
like 75% of you could be the BBEG of this campaign.
Yeah.
What are the goals for your character at this point in the story?
Well, for me personally, Asmir, what he wanted to do was to kind of follow in his grandpa's footsteps. Like, he knew his grandpa went with a troop to Bahamut, Spain all the time. He was a researcher. He went up there and saw and just did what researchers do. So he's kind of maybe mentally cosplaying his grandfather of sorts. He was like, oh yeah, this is something my grandpa would do, So he saw an opportunity at the gate to meet up with people to kind of fulfill a fantasy of his, and is like, okay, I'm committing to this. Okay, let's go. Because he essentially kind of quit his job on the spot there.
So I think you're
trying
still
to guy sensei you a little bit.
Yeah.
very much in still developing what your mystery is. I don't think you fully fleshed out where this is
almost intentional.
Yeah.
Well, I like that. It's like character development, but not quite. We're just seeing what's already developed.
Yeah.
And we're figuring it out.
I think,
But it's a juxtaposed to I think Yuriel at this point in the game, where he's just
He's devolving.
Fuck the orcs.
yeah. But his I feel like his path is becoming more and more clear.
Yeah.
And it's
but also more chaotic. 'Cause
Yeah.
originally he was very
law-abiding,
lawful and really has gone off the rails.
I feel like
And now he's just racist.
He's starting to find his own sense of what he views justice as, and at this point it might not even be justice. I think at this point for Yuriel, it's he's seen justice go unpunished, and he thinks that maybe justice is only for the strong, and he wants to become the strong.
That's the vibe I get. Is just it's just a strength check. It's not to talk about
ironic.
video games even more, but it's sword logic from Destiny. It's my will to live is better than yours because I killed you. And if you were better than me, you would have lived, and therefore I have more right to live than you. You're just on this power kick with these orcs.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see a future in which Yuriel makes his way to Krisk's home tribe land, if nothing else to tell them what came of Krisk, and
Make it good.
and possibly
Don't tell 'em the truth.
what came of the orcs, because I think he wants to definitely track down these orcs, and maybe take a couple heads to the tribe.
Back to the border.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Alara's is very simple. She wants to find out the fate of the Uri, because that was her entire mission, was to come here and connect with the Uri and see what the hell was going on. And then the moment that I got here and found out about the Uri, they're like, oh yeah, they're
extinct.
They're extinct. They're not here anymore. So
Until you've met Airfarim.
you're right. And he said, oh, there's things that you can find out about them. Y'all can reconnect with them. But and I hate to say it this way, but any side mission that she's doing is coincidental. She is only hanging out with you guys because she couldn't hardly stand whenever she first got here. And then now she has found a couple of leveled, ability people in a sea of people who are incompetent and stuff. And she's like, well, I'll hang out with these guys, you know, for
as
now.
long as it benefits me.
Like, if she hadn't come so under-leveled, like, it had just been, that would have been her mission, go straight there, do that. But she is so taken aback, and you guys have been a real help with getting her back on her feet. So hopefully it's a good friendship in the blossoming there. So
yeah,
I will say it is the dynamic for Alara has been very interesting, because I feel like Asmir's kind of had a lot of mistrust for it, because like we immediately just went.
Oh, I remember initially you were like, I don't like
no,
this.
this is
we were all very
weird. He hung out the longest, I think.
Yeah.
It's like, we just trust someone who just fell from the fucking sky. I mean,
the goals for Galil are just at this point. Sorry. No, you're good. To contain this Aethersite corruption and figure out how far it's spread, because I know my niece has taken metal out, and I think, you know, her father had some. So my family has dispersed it. I think my family may have been mining it, so I feel responsible for kind of collecting it, and I don't know if there's a way that I can maybe purify it at its source so that the curse is spelled throughout, or if I'm going to have to individually go and track down every piece of this metal. But
well, you know, the power lies within you now, so we're just going to have to strengthen it.
Yeah.
well, anybody else?
No, this has been a blast.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Well,
I hate to tell you now that I'm quitting the podcast.
but who's gonna do all the voices?
Oh yeah.
Thanks everybody for. I just want to say, Rom says hello.
Yeah, the dog. Have we established that Romulus exists?
No, I don't think he's king.
We've been trying to,
Audio has.
trying to hide him.
He exists.
There's also a guy that likes to mow his lawn next door.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It's been a year. It's been a great year.
Yeah,
I had a
it's
lot
been
of fun. If anybody's listened to all these by now, thank you very much for listening to
Yeah, thank you
24
so much.
episodes. And we
21 episodes.
21 episodes.
Yeah.
We plan on continuing doing this. I think everybody at the table's having a great time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and if you guys ever want to hear something like this again, we would appreciate some input from y'all. If there's any questions that y'all would want to ask or anything, we would just be thrilled to death to see what's on y'all's minds and address those questions personally.
Yeah,
if
like-
we ever do this again.
Like,
so.
do you like crunchy tacos or soft tacos?
Yeah.
Hopefully
Let us
something more
know.
relevant.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let us know.
But yeah, it's been a fun time. Until next time, y'all.
Yep. There's always room here at the tavern. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us.
Lara Virila.
And they've never heard of them again.
Persephone's Tavern, stories are told of heroes and legends, the brave and the bold. Galil Oarmender, with fire in his heart, crafts weapons and armor, a true work of art. Come to Persephone's Tavern, where adventure awaits, with dice in our hands and fate on our plates. Join us at the table, and let the stories unfold in Persephone's Tavern, where legends are told. Krisk Ul'Tarkas, with his mother's legacy, seeks vengeance and justice, his soul set free. As a mere Ashford, a young wizard in school, uncovering secrets with magic and tools. Come to Persephone's Tavern, where adventure awaits, with dice in our hands and fate on our plates. Join us at the table, and let the stories unfold in Persephone's Tavern, where legends are told. Yuriael Gloomraven, the ranger so keen, attracts beasts and foes with his bow so clean. Four heroes' fates now entwined, together they journey with destiny defined. Come to Persephone's Tavern, where adventure awaits, with dice in our hands and fate on our plates. Join us at the table, and let the stories unfold in Persephone's Tavern, where legends are told. In Persephone's Tavern, our tales will be sung as we share our adventures with friends old and young.